Episode 185. Chuan Cheng was a man who lived for stealing kills. Countless battles in online games erupted over contested monsters, so his experience with PK was second to none. Chuan Cheng would never believe in nonsense like acting chivalrously. The targets he stole from weren't some damsel in distress. There weren't that many heroes around to right wrongs. The answer was obvious now that a whole group of people had swarmed over. They were clearly in on it together. This is getting interesting. Chuan Cheng's gaze swept the area. Players were charging in from all distances, too many to count in the instant, but there were at least 20 of them. Chuan Cheng, boosted by the speed of his neutral chaser, moved swiftly. He spotted a gap in their encirclement and slipped right through. A cannon roared. The enemy's long-range gunner had fired. The shell shrieked in before the man himself was even in sight. Chuan Cheng dodged hastily. The shell exploded with a deafening boom, its blast wave far more powerful than he'd anticipated, violently shoving him sideways. Chuan Cheng reacted instantly, wrenching his body back into control mid-air. In glory, a knockdown is a forced attack effect, but like this shockwave blast, it's non-forced. The character's balance will be thrown off, but a skilled player can use their controls to regain their balance. If they fumble the input, they might still end up flat on the ground. A forced knockdown effect can't be countered by ordinary maneuvers. Only a technique like a roll recovery can neutralize it. That cannon shot cost Thousand Cities the initiative. As the group charged forward, the previous opening was now sealed. Their classes were positioned flawlessly, with several close combat specialists already closing in on Thousand Cities. Damn it! Despair welled up in Chuan Cheng's heart. He knew there was no escape this time, but he refused to simply wait for death. With a furious roar, he charged forward, spear whirling, hoping to take someone down with him. But at that very moment, that wish, it seems, was destined to remain just that, a wish. The enemy had wiped out Chuan Cheng with almost zero casualties. Who are these guys? Thought Chuan Cheng, resurrected in the empty city, as he sent a few names to Shizhou, hoping he could help look into their origins. These were the few names Thousand Cities managed to memorize during the fight. He died way too fast to get more than that in such a short time. Why are there so many people again?
Oh, don't worry about it. Just help me look it up, okay?
You've gotten into trouble again.
Chuan Cheng fell silent. He was a special case within the guild. Logically, someone with such terrible habits. A major guild wouldn't have tolerated him. But Blue Brook Pavilion valued his skill, so they kept him hidden within their ranks. As for Chuan Cheng, being part of a major guild made acquiring equipment much simpler. For instance, he was already decked out in the Battle Mage's Crimson Moon set. His level 30 Crescent Serpent Spear was an uncommon purple tier weapon. Without the backing of the Orchid Pavilion Guild, he'd never have gotten his hands on so much gear so easily. The guild had always looked out for Chuan Cheng, but it would never condone or cover up this kind of despicable behavior from him. Chuan Cheng had no issue with this. Every battle he'd ever fought, big or small, life or death, he'd handled alone, always keeping his guild affiliation hidden. So this time, Chuan Cheng still planned to handle it alone, but borrowing a bit of the guild's intel channels wouldn't hurt. This time, Chuan Cheng needed to recover from his weakened state, so he slowly made his way toward one Line Gorge while waiting for Zijou's reply. He couldn't help but find their behavior a bit odd. For grinding in the wild, a party of over 20 people was just too large. Besides, if you're in a party, but everyone's just fighting on their own, what's the point of even being in a party? Even with Thousand Cities' sharp eye for snatching mobs, he couldn't tell these guys were a group. That's how spread out they were. So what were these guys really up to? As Chuan Cheng plodded along, his weakened state gradually faded. That death cost him 10% of his experience. On top of that, his gear lost some durability, and he dropped a bit of gold. All standard penalties. He didn't drop any gear though. The drop rate for equipment in the regular zones isn't that high. Finally, word came in from Xizhou.
Chuancheng, we can't trace the origins of these players for now. In short, they're not from any of the major guilds.
Chuancheng wasn't too surprised. The world was vast, the player base immense. Blue Brook Pavilion wasn't the system. It didn't have that level of information resources. Their focus was primarily on the rival club guilds they competed with. If they weren't members of those guilds, then their knowledge would be pretty limited.
Take it easy.
Don't stir up too much trouble in the new server's launch. Qizhou wasn't fully blocking Chuancheng. If he was someone who could be stopped, he wouldn't have been allowed to get this far. Qizhou's well-meaning reminder, at the very least, was not to bring trouble to the guild. It was a bit cold, but Chuancheng himself rather enjoyed this special status of his. Chuancheng walked at a leisurely pace until the weakened status had completely worn off. Only then did he break into a light jog. Jogging was faster than walking. It was slower than a full sprint, but sprinting consumes stamina, so most players traveled by jogging. Soon, he was back at Line Gorge. Chuancheng didn't charge in recklessly. With over 20 opponents, a frontal assault would be a death sentence. Chuancheng was ready to pick them off one by one. He didn't care how underhanded or sneaky he had to be. Someone who liked to steal kills had basically no honor left. If only names could be hidden like guild titles, Chuancheng mused. After selecting a new entrance to Line Gorge, he moved slowly toward that direction. The canyon was deathly quiet, the only sounds the faint rustling of venomous insects crawling across the ground. Chuancheng paid no mind to these minor pests. He simply charged straight toward his target's location. As he drew near, he slowed his pace, carefully studying the terrain. Then he crouched and moved behind a small mound of earth. Then he quietly peeked out. 1, 2, 3 from here, he could see 3 opposing players, each engrossed in fighting monsters to level up. Chuancheng hadn't been overly cautious before, but now he understood. Looking again, although these 3 were fighting separately, their positions were within a range where they could support each other. He shifted his angle to look the other way and spotted 2 more opponents, also moving freely. But their positions remained at a fixed distance. This was tricky. Chuancheng frowned. These guys were always ready to coordinate with each other, leaving him no opening to exploit. But why are these guys doing this? What kind of strange trick are they trying to pull? Chuancheng kept his distance, lurking outside the circle. He shifted his position, getting a clear look at all 20 plus of them. Then he casually grabbed a piece of paper and even sketched out the positions of all 20 plus people. This formation seemed different from the one he'd crashed into earlier. The group had shifted, clustering much more tightly over here. Chuancheng marked points on the paper as he worked, thinking he'd see the full picture once he finished mapping it all out. Chuancheng immediately saw the situation. This formation was clearly aimed at the dungeon entrance. Were these guys planning to ambush someone? Were they waiting for someone to arrive, or for someone to leave? A name suddenly flashed in Chuancheng's mind. Zhen Moxiao, a figure who had recently exploded in popularity across the entire 10th server. Could these 20 people be waiting for Lord Grimm?